Alright, so boom, this past weekend we had the most stupendous WrestleMania in recent history. WrestleMania 38 went down in Arlington, Texas, down in Jerry World in Dallas, Cowboy Nation. And for my money, it was actually one of the best WrestleManias in recent history. Although I'm biased because I went to WrestleMania 35, taking my bias aside, this was probably the best WrestleMania since what, maybe 33? 31 probably. So I'd say it's probably the best WrestleMania since WrestleMania 31 in 2015. And when I say both nights had some absolute bangers, and truly the pacing of the show, the matches, the performance in the ring, everybody showed up. You know, there were minor blemishes that happened here and there, but for the most part, very entertaining show. And I'm going to give you my review on every single match and how I think, certain things possibly should have went and what I expect the follow-up is going to be moving forward, especially with tonight being the Raw after WrestleMania. But first and foremost, you already know how this always goes. There's always going to be people who are not a fan of wrestling, or they no longer watch wrestling and they've got issues with people enjoying wrestling because, oh, well, don't you know that everything is a work? Don't you know it's not real? Don't you know it's choreographed? Shut up! I ain't asked for your opinion. Shut your mouth. Let people have nice things. Movies ain't real, but I ain't never see you miss a goddamn movie at the theaters. Next person open up their goddamn mouth about wrestling fans watching wrestling and enjoying it. I'm breaking your fucking legs. I've had enough of you individuals running your mouth about people. Sorry about that. I guess I may have gotten carried away. Now, as it pertains to the matches, straight out the gate, no pre-show matches, and thank the Lord there were no pre-show matches, because truly, it's WrestleMania. I don't think we need to have a pre-show. Everybody know what we're here for. We don't need to see matches nobody cares about. WrestleMania should only be the important matches. And let me start with this point before I even get into the matches. I know I just said that regarding no pre-show, but I don't think this should be a two-night event. Moreover, I don't think everybody should have a match. I think we should go back to the old school, pay-per-view format. Keep it at about 3 hours, 4 hours. Only matches that had a stupendous build, only matches that regard, titles and relevancy should be on the card for WrestleMania. This shouldn't be no participation trophy. I'm tired of every single year you got on commentary talking about this person might have a WrestleMania moment. No. Let's stop trying to predetermine WrestleMania moments. It has to happen organically, has to happen naturally. Everybody should not be on the card. If you are a champion and you did not do the work to build interest in your title, guess what? You ain't having a match at the Showcase of the Immortals. Unless, of course, you're the world champion or something. At that point, you kind of gotta be on the show, so that discounts that point. But only relevant individuals should be on the doggone show. All right? If you've been doing absolutely nothing for months, you shouldn't all of a sudden mess around and be on WrestleMania. It don't make no doggone sense. It's ridiculous. Some matches had no business being on this doggone show, but that's a different conversation. Let's start out SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos taking on Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura. Really, as it pertains to injury, the biggest blemish on the entire night, all right? Because Rick Boogs done tore his doggone quad mere minutes into the match. I don't know if Nakamura and Boogs were supposed to go over, but because of the torn quad and Nakamura having to work alone, I think they would have had, they messed around and had to make a switch on the fly. The Usos messed around and retained. We couldn't necessarily get out of this match what I think they were gonna try to give us. Now, granted, there wasn't a high level of interest in this match. I feel like they kind of just threw it together over the course of the past few weeks to make, they have a defense of the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. It was a decent match, but given the injury to Rick Boogs, where he's going to most likely be out for several months, I don't know how long it's going to be. The brother's in phenomenal shape, but I don't know how quick he's going to be able to recover, so he's going to be gone for a little bit. This could be a blessing in disguise for Nakamura because now he'll be on his own. He'll be a single star. Hopefully they don't shove him back into a tag team. I think he's a guy who should stand alone and build on his own. And Rick Boogs aided in getting the crowd back into Nakamura's, theme and his entrance. So if they give him an opportunity to really go on his singles run and push him the right way, I think we can have Nakamura back. Will he be as over as he was when he first debuted on the main roster in his NXT days? I'm not sure, only time can tell, but Unfortunate, loss for that tag team, but a victory and a retaining situation for the Usos. Moving on, match number 2, we had Drew McIntyre taking on Happy Corbin in a singles match. And let me tell you something right now. Say what you want about Happy Corbin. He may have been one of the most annoying individuals on the roster. A lot of people don't like Corbin. His in-ring work may seem as if it's not as flashy as others, but let me say this. He's one of the best workers in the goddamn company. Moreover, one of the better workers, in wrestling, period. And he had one of the most protected finishers in wrestling. Nobody ever kicked out of the end of days until Drew McIntyre did it. And I'm happy that commentary touched on it, because this is important. Nowadays, you see false finish after false finish after false finish on any, routine show. But at WrestleMania was the very first time anybody kicked out of the end of days. They protected it. They made it mean something. So when he finally saw Drew McIntyre kick out of the end of days, he was losing his shit. The brother had the right amount of facials. The crowd really got into it, and then when Drew McIntyre hit him with that Claymore, you finally got redemption, and then ultimately you saw Drew McIntyre break the doggone, the ropes with Angela with that big ass doggone sword. I was hoping he'd have messed around and sliced through Madcap Moss. I was hoping we was fixing to see a little bit of murder. That'd have been nice, but I cannot confirm that I sent sentiments. But McIntyre walked away with a good victory. Now, granted, this is a guy who was in world title matches the last 2 Manias. He beat Brock 2 Manias ago. He lost against Lashley last year in the opening match. And this year, he's just battling against Happy Corbin. So some people be like, oh, man, this guy's getting buried. No, you can't every year. You can't be in the main event. Don't work like that. But McIntyre is still over. I think this is a very good, showcase for Corbin moving forward. But I'm curious if this feud is just completely over or where they're going to go moving forward. But personally, I think this was a good story coming into WrestleMania. It wasn't hot kind of story, but it was a good enough story to where it can culminate at WrestleMania, and it was a decent match. So kudos to those 2 brothers. They did what they had to do. Next up, the match that should have been not as good as we expected it to be, but it overperformed. And let me give kudos to WWE, all right? The celebrities that they've had coming in, the influencers, the YouTubers, the social media stars, when they step into the ring, I don't know what sort of training and prep that they do, but my God, have they delivered. Logan Paul, say what you want about the brother. This man put on a hell of a doggone performance. Bad Bunny had a magnificent, performance last year. Logan Paul had a great performance in the ring. They did a whole lot of callbacks to Eddie Guerrero and things of that nature. The Mysterios were a very safe team to work with. Miz, one of the best heels in the business this past decade, and a very safe worker as well. They protected everybody in the ring, and they made it entertaining. The only downside I had from this match was after it was all done, The Miz and Logan Paul won, which truly I feel like the Mysterios should have, but for the sake of storyline and to, build heat, it makes sense to have Miz and Logan Paul win. But when the Skull Crushing finale happened and Miz turned on Logan and hit him with the Skull Crushing finale, Logan Paul should have stayed his ass on the mat until they went into the commercial break to get ready for the next match. Because it didn't make no sense. You got hit with this man's finish. You was back on your feet within 7 seconds of camera time. That didn't make no sense. Man was standing up like this. They're not even selling the injury. I'm like, come on now. You just took a man's finish. I understand it probably wasn't planned, but it makes sense because Miz is a heel. You want to have him keep his heat. Of course, and I talked about this all during my live stream. At the conclusion of the match, nobody would have been talking about Miz. Everybody would have been talking about Logan Paul regardless. So you got to do something to keep your heat as it pertains to moving forward. So it makes sense he'd hit Logan Paul with the Skull Crusher finale. For the Mysterios, it's an unfortunate L. I don't know where you go from here, storyline wise, because they're gonna need to get a W somewhere. But with Logan Paul and Miz having that, debacle happen at the end of the match, the Mysterio's not gonna have an opportunity to get any kind of redemption against them unless Miz mess around and get another partner, or maybe Logan Paul comes back, they, make up in the ring, and then all of a sudden now they have another match at, what is it now, WrestleMania Backlash that they're calling it? But kudos to those 4 brothers. Very good match. Now, for the match that should have been the main event or the last wrestling match to go down at day 1. Bianca Belair, Becky Lynch, magnificent. You talk about a freaking slobber knocker of a match. That is beautiful, Beautiful wrestling. They had, in my opinion, the best story of WrestleMania Night 1. Because you're talking about the two women who main evented and won in WrestleMania, Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch. Both of them have a hell of a story because you had Bianca Belair win last year against Sasha Banks. Hell of a goddamn title run. All of a sudden, Becky Lynch comes back at SummerSlam, wins in 26 seconds. Like it was absolutely no effort, nothing for her to go and get the title. Bianca Belair got to go into the Royal Rumble. Ultimately not get an opportunity, but she lost that one. But she got herself a chance to, battle against Becky Lynch, and here you are, WrestleMania. The build for it was great because Becky was going to try to cut the braid off of Bianca's hair. She was able to counter, hit that doggone KOD, and then cut Becky Lynch's hair. They had a great entrance for both ladies, and both of them went out there and they put on a goddamn classic. Bianca Belair legit, back-to-back years, bangers. Moreover, she beat 2 of the 4 horsewomen at WrestleMania. So who's to say that she ain't gonna mess around and have to conquer all 4 of them motherfuckers? Bayley, Charlotte, look over your shoulder. Bianca coming. Hell of a performance from Becky. Hell of a performance from Bianca. In my opinion, this was the match of the night until what happened next. Because Becky's husband must have saw Becky in Gorilla and said, I'm about to one you up, babe. I'm about to one up you, darling. I'm going to usurp your whole performance. He comes out to the ring dressed in, the Savage Fendi, collection. I don't know what this lace see-through thing was that this brother was wearing along with that damn, I was about to say cloak, along with his cape or whatever. Looking like a goddamn fancy pigeon that done left Rihanna's studios. Comes down to the ring. He's waiting for his opponent. Everybody in the world knew it was going to be Cody. And I blame the internet for ruining this doggone moment because had nobody known Cody Rhodes was making his return to the WWE, I think it would have been a bigger moment than what it was. And still, people marked out. People lost their minds. That goes to show, even if, returns are spoiled, the fans are still going to somewhat buy in. I think the dirt sheets kind of ruined with the whole, spontaneous reactions in wrestling. But had nobody known it was going to be Cody, I still think, this would have been a hell of a moment. And in my opinion, it was the biggest WrestleMania moment of that day. I'll talk about Austin in a little bit, but hell of a goddamn moment. Cody Rhodes returns, and they put on a goddamn classic. Bianca and Becky had just had the match of the night, and then Seth Rollins and Cody took it to a whole other level. The only thing that I think we could have possibly had in this match was a little bit of color, but given Cody Rhodes' history and what he's been doing the past couple of years in AEW, bleeding for no damn reason, makes sense that we ain't getting no color in this match. But it would have been nice to have a little bit of blood. Seth played the role magnificently in this match. Because you kept hearing him use profanity throughout the whole match, talking about this is my moment, you son of a bitch, all this other stuff, talking all kinds of shit, the countering of the pedigree, Rhodes paying homage to his father, Dusty, with a bionic elbow. Everything was beautiful. The magnificent Cody cutter off of the top rope. The match was paced well. The moves made sense. The crowd was absolutely hot. You would have thought they got burnt out from Bianca and Becky, but they still had energy and made Rollins and Rhodes the match of the night. It was beautiful. And the right man won, because it wouldn't make no sense to have homie take this L. It reminds me of what happened when AJ Styles made his WrestleMania debut and then he messed around and lost to Chris Jericho. It should have been Styles who won over Jericho. They got it wrong during that year, in my opinion. But I understand why they would book it. But in Cody's, case, returning back to WWE in Texas, a true Texas crowd, he earned their respect. After AEW was kind of wishy-washy with him as it pertains to the crowd, they were booing him when AEW wanted him to be cheered. He was getting cheered when they wanted him to get booed. Crowd didn't know how to feel about him. But in this day, WrestleMania Saturday, he got his respect. He had a hell of a moment. They had a goddamn magnificent match, and they took that match of the night spot. Next up, the match that had no business going on second to last, Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. Let me say this right now. The build to this match was piss poor. Ronda shouldn't be talking on mics. You know what she needs to do? She needed to be the superstar who just comes out, grabs somebody's arm, breaks somebody's arm or injures somebody's arm, and then go about her business. Her mic work, this whole doggone run has been absolutely terrible. Charlotte did everything in her power to try to make this something. Moreover, Charlotte barely defended her doggone title during her run as champion. So ultimately, this was kind of stupid to try to set this up as if this was going to be one of the biggest women's matches. Becky and Bianca had a better story. They should have been slotted to go on last as it pertains to championship matches. It should not have been Charlotte and Ronda. And I'll say this about the match. It was average. It was average. Ronda's facials throughout the match, terrible. Terrible. She never looked as if she was actually in some kind of pain. Her sell job when she was in the figure four was kind of, it was very underwhelming. Charlotte tried her best to try to make things happen. And then the finish, a big boot. Now granted, she's been, finishing matches with a big boot. But you just get a pinfall on Ronda at Mania when the entire build was about submissions? What? They were selling the leg, a little bit of the arm throughout the whole match to end with a big boot? I'm confused. Maybe somebody knows something that I don't, but I didn't quite get it. It was very underwhelming. The ending of the match is like, so we came all the way up until this point for this? You just seen Bianca and Becky tear the house down. You just saw Rollins and Rhodes take it to a whole other level. And then Charlotte and Ronda, it's like a ruined orgasm. I was watching like, it's kind of disappointing. I was expecting much more. I thought we was about to get a mat, technician clinic in this match. We didn't get it. It was very disappointing, very underwhelming. They didn't do Ronda justice. Personally, I feel like it should have been Ronda and Shayna Baszler at Mania. It makes the story writes itself. They both got an MMA background. Shayna Baszler is the natural heel. Ronda can be the babyface because she was always getting cheers. They don't need to do no speaking. All they got to just do is fight, and that was a better sort of story that could have been set up. But they keep sticking Shayna in tag matches. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. And Ronda here on her own trying to play the whole role of this, I'm this badass, I'm the main event, I'm this, magnificent draw. I won the Royal Rumble after doing absolutely nothing, and here I am challenging Charlotte. I'm about to take myself a huge W, and that's not what happened. You took another L at WrestleMania. Ronda's only 2 L's are where? WrestleMania. Very underwhelming match. Very underwhelming match. And last but not least, Stone Cold Steve Austin on the KO show with Kevin Owens. And I'll say this. It's a good idea that they did this as a no-holds-barred match, because if it was just a regular traditional wrestling match, Austin was not going to look very good. Now, granted, the brother 57 years old, he looked like he was 57 years old. For the smarks that are out there, the marks that are out there, the wrestling fans who thought Austin was going to look the way he looked when he was 30, you're absolutely delusional. He looked old. He moved old. He could barely lift Owens when he was by the barricade and he tried to lift him to drop him onto the barricade. He barely got his body up. Although the 2 suplexes were all right. I'll give Austin that. But there was several different moments during this match in which Austin, you can see the age. Now, he's 57. This is to be expected. Just because Sting is 60-something years old, moving like he's still 40 or things of that nature, don't mean that Austin need to be moving like that. People's bodies is different. Undertaker, when he got old, looked old. Hell, he's still old right now. That brother was walking around, taking like 10 minutes to go from one point of the damn stage to the other. His back was like Mike Tyson when he said, "My back is broken." Spinal. That's exactly what happens when you've been wrestling for years. Austin ain't been in no doggone ring, moreover, in a match in 19 years. So he's going to look like that. He's going to have that rust that's there. But with it being no holds barred, he was somewhat protected. You can use some foreign objects. You could probably go out there and grab a beer like he did. And, utilize your surroundings, and he made it entertaining. If you were watching this expecting to have the nostalgia, you're not going to have a good time. You watch this for what it was, you would have enjoyed it, like I did. I didn't expect this man to look like Ricky Steamboat when he was in that damn triple threat with Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka at WrestleMania 25 against Chris Jericho. Steamboat was 56 years old, jumping, leaping like he was fighting against Macho Man Savage at WrestleMania 3. But some people age differently, like I said prior. Austin did his thing. The crowd got what they were looking for, and you got about 4 stunners. Owens gave one to Austin. Austin gave one to Owens, and they protected it because they made sure Owens didn't kick out the doggone stunner. He took the stunner. It was 1, 2, 3. We going home. Then ultimately we saw Byron take a stunner. My God, thank you, the Lord. Byron Saxton got stunned. I hope he continues to get stunned every day for the rest of his life. All right? Because we don't like Byron Saxton over here. Hey, I'm a fan of Byron. No, you're not. Stop lying to the people. But WrestleMania Night 1 was a success, in my opinion. It was very good. The only blemish, two blemishes. One, Rick Boogs tore his down, quadricep. And then Ronda Rousey and Charlotte under-delivered. But outside of that, very entertaining Night 1. Now, for Night 2. It was an uphill battle because Night 1, in my opinion, was a resounding success. So now the performers will try to one-up what happened yesterday. And they did a hell of a job. Starting out with the Raw Tag Team Championship. You had RK Bro, Alpha Academy, and the Street Profits in a great opening tag match. You seen everything that you wanted to see. You saw high flying. Montez Ford was selling damn near the entire doggone match. I've said this time and time again throughout several different live streams every time I see Montez Ford. He has the best frog splash to have ever been used in wrestling history. But what about Eddie Guerrero's impact? I understand that. Rest in peace to Eddie. You are truly one of the greatest to have ever done it. But when you look at Montez Ford, he got more impact. What about RVD and the height that he got? Don't get me wrong. RVD, one of the greatest high flyers, hell, greatest innovators, wrestlers, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, period, to ever walk this earth and still walking this earth. Homie got a lap dance at the Hall of Fame. You love to see it. Living your best life, brother. But Montez Ford gets higher, can contort his body. That brother has the best frog splash ever in wrestling history. And he was selling left and right, doing his doggone job. The overweight Carmelo Anthony, Angelo Dawkins impressed me. You know what? He's grown on me. I've said time and time again, I think that brother is holding Montez back. Montez got the charisma, he's got the athleticism, he's got the moveset. Once he goes into his singles, star run, if they give him the opportunity, that man can be as big as The Rock. He literally has the it factor. But Angelo Dawkins, that brother impressed me. He's got great ring work. He's working on the mic skills. Facials are getting a little bit better. And he's doing his stuff. RK Bro, they've gotten over. They've sold me. At first, I thought it was somewhat lame. They've got me now. And I love the stuff they got going on in the Alpha Academy. They're doing great work. This was a hell of a doggone match. Great match. And then at the end, after RK Bro, retained and was able to keep their titles, you had Gable Stevenson, the Olympian, and also the NCAA champion step into the ring, and it was Gable on Gable violence as he did several different suplexes over the Chad Gable. And truly, I think if you put these two together at one point down the line, you can have a hell of a doggone stable. All right, this is the opening of the door to have Kurt Angle return, because it doesn't make sense that you got Olympians left and right in WWE here with both Gables, and you don't have Kurt Angle here to lead the way and have a stable. Now, granted, Kurt Angle probably because of the hours on the road and things of that nature and the days on the road, that's one of the reasons why he's probably not a part of the company right now. But still, I think the door should open and he should be a manager for those two at one point down the line. Now, granted, Chad Gable is 36. I don't know how much longer he want to go. Wrestlers can go into their doggone 40s, 50s, whatever the case may be. But I would like to see them two work with Angle. But I'm curious to see what Gable gonna look like. He's got the look, he's got the athleticism, but my God, I hope he can talk on the mic. Chad Gable is pretty much Kurt Angle 2.0. I don't know why the hell they tried to do the Angle a couple years back with Jason Jordan being his son. It should have been Chad Gable. It's literally right in front of him. But whatever the case may be, I'm excited moving forward for the tag division. I think Raw, they got it right. This was a hell of a tag team championship match. Very entertaining. Everybody got what they wanted as it pertains to what you wanted to see out of this match. They did a hell of a job. Great way to kick off WrestleMania Night 2. The next match, Bobby Lashley taking on Omos. Let me say this about Omos. A lot of people talk about Omos as extremely green. You're not wrong. People talk about he's somewhat boring. You're not wrong. But Giga Negro came out here at WrestleMania, and let me tell you something right now. He performed. He played his role magnificently. And Bobby Lashley, give that man all of the doggone credit. You talk about being able to rejuvenate his career. Ever since he got with MVP during the pandemic, Bobby Lashley has been top 5 in wrestling, any fucking promotion. You show me 5 people better than Bobby Lashley in the wrestling world right now, I will call you a motherfucking liar. Everything that man has done since 2020 has been absolute gold. He stepped it up on the mic. His ring work has gotten to the best of his career. His physique still looks as if this man was 26. Homie has been doing magnificent. And that whole match, the way he performed was magnificent. He sold everything. When he was getting his ass whipped, you believed he was getting his ass whipped. And when he overcame the odds, you couldn't help but cheer. And he gave Omos his very first L one-on-one. It was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. Short match. But that man went out there and showcased why he should be taken seriously. A lot of people were talking about, oh man, Omos is getting buried already. No, he not. Bobby Lashley's a multiple-time WWE champion. He's a legitimate champion. There's a reason why if you take an L against somebody who got that kind of resume, you don't look at somebody and say, oh man, they're buried. Now, if Omos don't do nothing, come by SummerSlam or something of that nature, then by all means, you could say they kind of scrapped the plans with him. But to have somebody like Bobby beat Omos makes a little bit of sense. I liked the match. I enjoyed it. Bobby Lashley, huge W. After him, you had Johnny Knoxville taking on Sami Zayn. I ain't gonna lie to you. I had high hopes for this match. They exceeded my expectation. Why do I say I had high hopes for the match? Johnny Knoxville isn't like the, traditional celebrity performer in wrestling. This is a guy who literally made a career off of doing absolute buffoonery, doing crazy stunts left and right. So I expected him to go out there, and if they needed somebody to fall through a table, it could be him. If they needed somebody to take an insane spot, it could be him. He could be like a Shane McMahon, just throwing his body all over the place. But lo and behold, Sami Zayn was doing the exact same. We seen some table spots. We seen the Jackass crew get involved. We seen an homage to Big Dick Johnson back in the DX days. This man came out in a damn Speedo. We saw a human fingernail, half a human in a midget, come out here and body slam Sami Zayn like it was shades of Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. It was a magnificent freaking match for all intents and purposes. You talk about a hardcore match, anything goes match between a celebrity and somebody else. Hey, they delivered. Give a huge round of applause to Sami Zayn. You talk about somebody able to get Johnny Knoxville over in 2022 in a wrestling match. They did a hell of a job, dog. It was an entertaining match from start to finish. We saw Mark Henry and Mae Young's hand make its debut on the main roster. That big ass motherfucking hand. I thought Mark Henry was in AEW. His son or daughter or whatever gendered hand that was out there at WrestleMania 38. You love to see it. Slap the shit out of Sami Zayn. There was a whole lot of balls that was being attacked during this match. I thought that this would be a perfect moment to be sponsored by Manscaped for WrestleMania 38. Because their balls definitely not going to thank them for that performance. Zayn's balls gotta be in all kinds of pain. He got booted in his balls from somebody's prosthetic leg. Somebody check on Zach Gowen. Let's see if it was his leg that was utilized by Johnny Knoxville and his crew. Then a bowling ball to the balls. You can't add another testicle during a match. I know that man is in pain. Sami Zayn might never be able to produce the semen to create a child. Any future partner for this man, guess what? You will not be able to procreate. There are no future Zayns in the future. But whatever the case was, very entertaining match, great finish. Personally, I thought Sami Zayn was gonna win. I was shocked that it was Johnny Knoxville who went over. But whatever the case was, after a match like that, whoever wins, hell of a doggone match. Hell of a doggone match. I really enjoyed it. They did it right. And I think that was a thumbs up from everybody. If there's anybody who didn't like the match, let me know in the comment section what you thought. Next up, Sasha Banks, Naomi taking on Queen Zelina and Carmella, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and then ultimately Natalya and Shayna Baszler, women's tag team championship match. Now, granted, this match coming in, it didn't really have as much heat as other matches did. This was one of those things where it's like, oh, we got a title. It has to be defended at WrestleMania. Let's make it happen, you know? And Sasha Banks has to be on the card. You can't not have Sasha on the card. You can't not have Rhea on the card. And let me tell you, the women went out there. They showed out. Now, granted, Sasha was going to have her number of botches. You know, she does, you know, have a botch here and there that happens. Doesn't change the fact that, in my opinion, she's the best women's wrestler on the planet. I said that again. Best women's wrestler on the planet. But we ain't talking about that right now. She went out there, finally broke her 6th WrestleMania streak of L's. She finally got herself a W. She got herself a W with Naomi, and they left with the title. Unfortunate for Liv Morgan, missed out on yet another opportunity. Truly, in my opinion, Liv Morgan got to get herself a title at one point over the course of the next 12 months. Because what are we doing? So how many times is Shorty going to come up short? How many times? If we're going to have Queen of the Ring this year, have Liv Morgan win, please. Money in the Bank, have Liv Morgan get an opportunity. Royal Rumble, Sasha Banks time. But let Liv Morgan have a good, opportunity. It's only a matter, like, come on now. The fans get behind her. She gets great reactions. Come on now, let her get an opportunity. But the ladies did their job, and Shayna Baszler, she needs to turn heel again on Natalya. She's already healed. Just become like a double heel. Take out a pair of high heels. Beat the shit out of Natalya. Send her into retirement because that old hag needs to get up out of here. I've had enough. Shayna Baszler is 41 years old. Natalya's 39, but Natalya move around like she's 57. She got great ring work. Don't get me wrong. She got great ring work. But everything else about her is boring. I've had enough of Natalya. It's time for her to go. Get her out of here. Zelina Carmella, I hate this doggone gimmick with this whole face thing that's going on with Carmella. Separate the two. She's pretty much holding Zelina back. She can stand on her own. Let her be Queen Zelina on her own. They kind of ruined the son bitch. But whatever the case may be, very good match. They did what they had to do. Sasha, Naomi, great job. They are the women's tag team champions, and I'm pretty sure they're going to represent the tag team division well. Their best work is going to come against Liv and Rhea. Moreover, I would love to see a singles match on pay-per-view with something on the line for Sasha and Rhea Ripley. You know what it should be? It should be a #1 contenders tournament for whether it's the SmackDown or the Raw Women's Championship. Set it up to where you can drag this out for a couple of weeks. Set it up to where the final is Rhea versus Sasha at a pay-per-view. And oh my God, you can start printing the money right now because I can guarantee you that's going to be a match of the year candidate. But hell of a doggone match. Congratulations to Sasha and Naomi. Next up, you had Edge taking on AJ Styles in what was the longest match of all of WrestleMania. And Edge, his entrance, magnificent. AJ Styles was bleeding, apparently, according to Pyro, I guess hitting his face, before the match even started. And they went out there, they put on a classic, although I feel like this match could have been at 18 minutes rather than 24. Both of these guys showcased why they are legends in this industry, why they're both Hall of Famers. In Edge's case, he's already in the WWE Hall of Fame. AJ Styles will end up in whether it's the TNA Hall of Fame or, well, not Impact Hall of Fame or WWE Hall of Fame. He should be in all of the doggone Hall of Fames for wrestling, period, because he's one of the best doggone wrestlers on the planet. These two showcase what wrestling is all about, okay? What it's all about. They went out there, put on a doggone classic. They showcased why moves hurt, why moves matter. They took their time. They laid on the mat after whatever, move that they did. The false finishes made a whole lot of sense. The ending of the match, I don't know how to feel about it. AJ had been calculated the entire doggone match. All of a sudden, now you're going for another phenomenal forearm. You look over at Damian Priest just standing there. How'd he get there? Where did they kill Damian Priest to have him respawn at ringside? And now they're going to build a stable between Damian Priest and Edge. I don't know where Damian Priest came from. What priest did he pray to have him born again in that location? That joint came out of nowhere. I'd have been like, okay, if Damian Priest attacked, AJ or possibly attempted to attack AJ, okay, my man's was just standing there. And that was enough to throw off AJ Styles. That's kind of weird to me. I mean, Edge was on the ground, so of course he wasn't going to get a reaction out of him. But Damian Priest just showing up out of nowhere, that was kind of weird to me. I felt like they could have done that a little bit better. How I would have done it, I actually have no opinion on this, so maybe this disqualifies my opinion. But whatever the case was, it was a hell of a match. I don't think the ending was a situation that ruined the match for me. I enjoyed it through and through. I'm curious to see how this moves, or how this storyline moves going forward. Overall, hell of a doggone match. I really enjoyed it. Edge ended up leaving with the W. I thought this was a situation where AJ could go over, but whatever the case was, I enjoyed the match through and through. And it was great. Now, I'd love to see what they're going to do with Edge and Damian, moving forward. I'm curious what this is going to look like this upcoming pay-per-view, and if they're going to run it back, and what, Damian Priest's role is going to be in that match, and how that's going to end up turning out. So maybe I'll keep my opinion on everything on standby for the most part. But it was very odd how he just showed up out of nowhere. Like, come on now, you can't create this man's character during the doggone match. That was kind of weird. But moving on after that, you had the grudge match. The New Day taking on Sheamus, Ridge Holland with the man formerly known as Pete Dunne, Butch, standing ringside in a squash match? Really? It was under 2 minutes. This match was supposed to happen on day one, but it didn't happen because they ran out of time. So they put it into night two. New Day was paying homage to Big E. Big E had his neck broken from Ridge Holland, and they don't go over? They lose here? That was kind of confusing to me. The way that they were building the whole match to where, hey, Big E's neck was broken. They kept showing the footage of Big E's neck being broken, which I thought was kind of fucked up. But if you're going to continue to show the brutality of what happened with his neck breaking, I figured the New Day would go over. But instead, they damn near got crushed. They started out the match pretty strong, and in the final 60 seconds, they got their ass whipped. There was a couple of brogues for everybody from Sheamus, and then here you go with a victory. I didn't quite understand this. I understand wanting to keep heat, but this is WrestleMania. The redemption should have happened here. I don't understand. Xavier Woods literally came back from injury 2 weeks ago. I was at SmackDown when he did come back, just to have them lose at Mania. I didn't understand that. I didn't get it. Sheamus and Ridge Holland losing doesn't really affect them. But for New Day, I think it does, because now the whole stable getting their ass whipped. Hey, we broke your man's neck. We gave y'all an L at WrestleMania. You came back from injury just to take an L in front of the showcase of the Immortals. Like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that. Let me know in the comment section what y'all thought about that finish. And then Pat McAfee, living my dreams, takes on Austin Theory. And let me say this. They hit it out the park. Like I said earlier, with all the celebrities, all the doggone influencers, all these outside people who aren't wrestlers who came into WrestleMania to go and perform, they knocked it out the park. Logan Paul, hell of a doggone performance. Johnny Knoxville, hell of a doggone performance. Pat McAfee, this is his third match overall. He had 2 in the NXT War Games, and then ultimately, a match with Adam Cole. And here he came out, WrestleMania, performed very well. The ring attire, I'm not really sold on it. Brother looked like he just got done taping his podcast and walked outside. For whatever reason, had the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. He punted a couple of footballs. Well, punted a football. That was all right. Pretty sure Cowboys fans, oh my God, we got representation. We love the theater. Let's go, Pat McAfee. Come join the Cowboys. You all pro. You can be all pro with the Cowboys. Here we go. Zeke and Micah Parsons was sitting in the front. Jerry Jones was in the box. They didn't put him on camera, but I know he was there. We didn't boy. It doesn't matter. But Pat McAfee showcased his skills and athleticism in this match against Austin Theory. Let me say this about Austin Theory. One of the best workers in the business right now. The sky is the limit for that man. The sky is the limit for that man. McAfee paid homage to Shelton Benjamin being able to jump on a damn box spring jump onto the top rope and deliver a doggone superplex that make Bob Orton happy. It was magnificent. Very good match. They played both roles well. McAfee also sold moves very well as well. Stayed on the ground. Took his time. You could tell he was a wrestling fan growing up, and you could tell he took his training seriously. It was very, very, very good, and I was shocked that McAfee actually went over. Vince McMahon came out to introduce Austin Theory just to have his protege take an L. That was kind of interesting to me. And you want to know what happens with Austin Theory? He looked terrible tonight. absolutely terrible tonight. You talk about somebody who had a bad night. Not his ring work, but for his character, looked absolutely terrible because you took an L to Pat McAfee. Vince McMahon gets baited by McAfee to step into the ring and have a match. Vince McMahon wins over Pat McAfee with a punt of another Dallas Cowboys football representation, baby. But then we don't want Pat McAfee if he gonna lose to Mr. McMahon. Mr. McMahon gotta be 876 years old. Do you know he was actually 72 years old back when the Civil War happened? I wonder if he was on the side of Confederacy or maybe the North and the Union. But we ain't talking about that right now. Whatever the case was, we now want Vince McMahon as our punter in 2022. But Vince McMahon left with a victory over Pat McAfee. He beat the shit out of McAfee. Of course, you're not going to have the referee call for a disqualification because your boss is the man calling the shots. But how the hell does McAfee go from beating Austin Theory to losing to an old and febrile Mr. McMahon? You lost to Mr. Burns. You lost to Mr. Burns, Pat. It don't make sense. But, of course, this was all a setup to have what? Stone Cold Steve Austin come out and then go lay a can of whip ass on Austin Theory and then also stun the shit out of Vince McMahon. I don't understand how in 25 years Vince McMahon has not learned to not drink a beer with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin delivered his very first stunner on Vince McMahon in 1997, 25 years ago. And for whatever reason, Vince McMahon still hasn't learned how to sell a stunner. The first kick to the doggone navel, Vince McMahon already done bounced off the rope. This man looked like he done got hit with a sweet chin music. I don't understand what the hell Vince is doing. This man dropped his head backwards after going down for the doggone stunner from Austin before he could even touch his head. I don't even think Austin's fingernails touched Vince's head. Austin gave him the midsection kick, tried to grab him for the stunner. Vince damn near catapulted himself out the ring. What was he doing? What was he doing? It's been 25 years. Vince can't sell a doggone stunner. But Pat McAfee beat Austin Theory, lost to Mr. McMahon. So Austin Theory can't even beat a man who can't beat Vince McMahon? What the hell we doing with this man character, dog? He too doggone good to get treated like this. He should have went over. But it was still great sports entertainment. Austin done shared a beer with Pat McAfee and then gave that man a stunner. And you saw McAfee still laying on the ground drinking a little bit of Steve Wise's while Stone Cold was doing his thing, living my doggone dreams. I gotta tell you, man, Pat, you are living my dreams. But we ain't talking about that right now in my envy of the situation. We got ready for the main event. And might I add, they didn't get the attendance record. Remember, it was 6 years ago at WrestleMania 32. They had over 100,000. I think it was like 102,000. This year, in day one, they had 77,000 and change. Day two, 78,000 and change. But the main event, the biggest of all time to date, you had Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, WWE Champion versus Undisputed Champion. Winner take all. Both titles on the line. Unification for who is the true face of WWE. Roman came out first. I wasn't sure why that was, but then when he grabbed the mic and asked WrestleMania to acknowledge him, that makes sense, because if Brock was in the ring, he probably wouldn't let him finish that line. Brock would have most likely attacked him, because I highly doubt they would have just stood there and did nothing. But for what it was worth, good match. It was an all right match. I don't know what a lot of people were expecting. You saw Rollins and Cody Rhodes. You saw Bianca and Becky. You saw AJ and Edge. So a lot of people probably thought I was about to see a wrestling clinic. You already know that is not these two guys' style. It's going to be high impact. It's going to be a whole lot of, pain and suplexes and punches and spears and things of that nature. Although I felt like the finish came out of nowhere. There was one wacky spot where Reigns was trying to replicate when he hit the spear on Undertaker in WrestleMania 33 when he was building all kinds of momentum. He ended up spearing Lesnar from behind. That came out of nowhere. I thought he was probably going to go again and try to hit him from the front. I don't know why. It looked very bizarre. But whatever the case was, Reigns was able to come out on top. I think there was a total of maybe 8 to 11 suplexes. I think I stopped counting at 8 for how many suplexes Lesnar had. But I thought there was going to be a little bit of color in this match. Brock was always talking about, he was talking about in the build-up, blood for blood. When I was at the MSG live event, when Reigns got, he busted, he busted Lesnar open, and had him bleeding and stood on the damn steps. So I figured we was gonna have somebody bleeding. That wasn't the case. There was no outside interference, although there was a moment where the ref was down. Heyman gave the title to Reigns, and Reigns hit Brock over the face. Shades of, I believe it was the pay-per-view was day one when that had happened, and Heyman had aligned himself, with when he threw the title in there, and he aligned himself with Reigns once more. So whatever the case was, it was an all right match to close out the show. Reigns went over like I predicted, because I didn't see a circumstance in which Lesnar should win here. Back in WrestleMania 31, these two faced off, and you had the heist of the century, the cash-in from Seth Rollins, which was well executed. The right man left with the title that day. Then in WrestleMania 34, it was Lesnar and Reigns. A lot of people thought it was going to be Reigns' moment, but it wasn't. But overall, for what it was worth, I think the right man won. And that was the conclusion of WrestleMania. Goddamn camera overheated. But overall, in closing, I believe it was indeed the most stupendous WrestleMania. Do I think it was the best of all time? No, but it was very, very, very good, and I think they delivered. Moving forward, I think this two-night format should be switched back to one night, and they really should cut out a great ton of matches. I went to WrestleMania 35. There was too many doggone matches. 16 matches on the card, including those 3 pre-show matches. So you could make a 7-match WrestleMania, 8-match WrestleMania, have the biggest builds, the biggest matches on that doggone card. And if you did not have your title get over or something of that nature, you shouldn't have been on the show. For example, i.e. the IC championship, i.e. the US championship. Did those titles get defended at WrestleMania this year? No. Why? Because nobody gave a shit about Ricochet, and nobody gave a shit about who is the US champion right now? Finn Balor. Nobody cares about what they were doing going into WrestleMania. So unfortunately, their matches did not, or I should say, they didn't even have an opportunity to have a match. So moving forward, I think it should be like that. Everybody shouldn't get an opportunity at Mania. You're going to need to earn it throughout the whole year. But next year, they have already had the promotion that is going to be 2 nights at SoFi, and it's going to be in Hollywood. And a lot of people thought at the conclusion of WrestleMania 38 that we would have messed around and saw The Rock make his return and ultimately challenge Roman Reigns and have a similar build to the once-in-a-lifetime match between Cena and Rock back in 2012. And a lot of people are expecting Rock to go one-on-one with Roman Reigns, and naturally it's the match that should happen in the future. If you needed a big match for what's to come for next year's WrestleMania, it's Roman versus Rock. And truly, I think that's a match that should happen. If Rock has it in his schedule to wrestle at WrestleMania, although he did say he quietly retired or whatever the case may be, I think that is the best case scenario for this upcoming Mania. Now, granted, I'm not a big fan of all these part-timers, coming back and, constantly, taking that spot from somebody. But I think if before Rock ultimately cannot perform physically anymore, you gotta have Reigns fight against Rock and ultimately have Reigns go over on Rock, because it doesn't make sense having Rock, mess around and win the title again. Or it could be a match that doesn't have to involve the title. Reigns can mess around and drop the title. I think there's only 4 people who've held the title longer than Reigns have. I believe it's Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Bob Backlund, and maybe I think it's Pedro Morales. Somebody had said it during the live stream, but somebody tell me in the comment section if I got the names right or if I'm missing somebody else who have held the World's Championship longer than Reigns have. I believe he's at 577, 578 on the time length of his title run. So overall, like I said prior, this was a very, very good WrestleMania. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of this year's WrestleMania, and moreover, what you expect to see, transpire in the aftermath, the fallout of this WrestleMania. Tonight, we've got Raw after Mania. I'm excited for it. I'm curious to see what returns are going to happen. I'm banking on Bayley, making a response or making a return, I should say, and I'm curious who's going to debut on the main roster. Maybe Braun Breaker. I'm expecting to see where that goes. I know that brother got great ring work, shades of his, uncle and father in the Steiners who just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Maybe he's going to be the guy who's molded to take down Roman Reigns, but I can't wait to see where they go from here, man. They did a good job. WrestleMania 38, good job. You get a round of applause from me. I ain't going to give you a star rating because my name is not Dave Meltzer. Just know I enjoyed the show. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about it. And let's get ready for the live stream tonight for Raw After Mania.